So welcome to the Afro Ndiritu podcast and today's episode of Expert Weekly. I have an amazing guest on today's show. Her name is Jules White, an award-winning international sales consultant with 30 years of experience and sales experience, working in many different sectors, selling everything from baby products to stainless steel to yellow pages. She's also experienced every job role within sales, from tele-sales through to sales director, and a wonderful breadth of knowledge and experience to bring to her work. She's also secured investment from Peter Jones in the Dragon's Den, which is the ultimate pitch to win. Her passion and mission is to bring a new outlook and perspective to sales in the modern business age we live in, which will help you to be truly unique. Her Live It, Love It, Sell It entrepreneur program is also a book and now a creation of UHP, Unique Human, all of this. Proposition takes it up a gear to deliver the effective methodologies to the corporate market too. Her style is a passion, inclusive, and she immerses herself fully into the business in order to work as part of your team. Jules' ultimate aim is to make sure you create an unparalleled sales experience for all of your customers through you and your unique people. Awesome. Welcome to the show, Jules.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. It's great to have you on. Where do we start? There's so many ways I could go with this, but let's start with the beginning. Let's start with Dragon's Den.
Yeah, so I guess the thing to say is that it was 2005 that I
Yeah.
was on Dragon's Den.
Second series.
That's a long
Yeah.
time ago. The second series,
I,
yeah.
I can't believe it's been that long. I can't believe it's been on that long. It's crazy.
Well, you know what? When I started my business 4 years ago, I wasn't even going to mention Dragon's Den. It wasn't in my mind, nothing. That was done.
Yeah.
And everybody kept saying that, everybody I knew kept saying, well, why aren't you telling them that you were on Dragon's Den?
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
was like,
Leverage.
well, people don't want to know that. Well, the great thing is it's still on the television, and
Yeah.
the even better thing is Peter Jones is still on
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So of course it was relevant and people knew. So I had my son in 2005, New Year's Day. And then 3 months later, once I'd got used to being a mum and I loved him, I adored him, I still do. I didn't really want to go back to work. I just wanted to be mum.
Makes
But
sense.
I kind of felt like I was missing something because I was so driven and entrepreneurial. So I thought I'll start a business.
Yeah.
And then I'll start a business where I can still be with Sam. So I decided on Party Plan, which was selling baby products. No one else was doing it. So I thought, yeah, let's go for it.
Makes sense.
And then about 2 months after I started the business, I built a website and I'd got a catalogue together of products.
Yeah.
I must just tell you, no Facebook, no social media back then.
Nothing then, was there? Just like yellow pages, like you said.
Yellow pages, forums like Mumsnet and Net Mums and stuff like that. Anyway, this advert popped on my computer this one morning. It said, we're looking for applicants for Dragon's Den.
Okay.
So I thought, oh, well, I'm going to fill this in then.
Yeah.
And I filled it all in and I laughed my head off. And then by 9 o'clock that morning, the BBC were on the phone.
Oh, really?
And they said, yeah, within 2 hours. And they said, we love your business. Tell us more about it. Can you come tomorrow and pitch to camera at BBC Television
that
House?
quickly?
That quickly.
Wow.
And within 2 weeks, I was pitching in front of the Dragons.
I didn't know. I don't know if it happens that quickly now, but geez, that is fast.
No. Well, I think what happened was they were looking for the last few to record that series. So I think my timing was perfect. I honestly, I wasn't even serious about it. I'm not even telling lies. And then within 2 weeks, I was there in front of them on the cross. So
on the cross.
And I mean, I think there's a couple of things that's always interesting to people. I was in front of the Dragons for 2.5 hours.
Yeah. Oh, really?
And
oh, wow.
Yes.
That is a long time.
And on the television, if you ever find the clip, which you probably can't find the clip, it's 14 minutes of my pitch.
Yeah.
So you can imagine how much great stuff they cut out, and they left all the rubbish stuff in there. That's what I always tell people.
Oh, amazing! So you went through that experience.
No. So we had Theo and Peter were kind of bidding against each other to invest, and I chose Peter.
Yeah.
Shook hands on the program. That was the May. By the September, that was the first time I heard from his people. So it
Oh,
was a
wow.
really big gap,
That is a long
at
gap.
which time I was just carrying on running the business organically.
Yeah.
And then the contracts came through, and the solicitor said to me, please don't sign these contracts. He said, you can get a better deal. You don't need to do this. And
Wow.
I was so disappointed, but he said, look, I haven't slept. I really don't want you to sign them. So I didn't sign them for the right
Yeah.
reasons, and we carried on. And then when the program went out,
Yeah.
which was then November, so you imagine all these
Ah,
time lag,
yeah.
then everybody saw us shake hands and thought Peter had invested, by which time we hadn't done the deal. And I got 2,500 emails that
Oh,
night.
geez.
And three of them were from investors who
Yeah.
wanted to invest in the business. And I chose a lady I knew.
Okay, cool.
I actually played hockey with her. So I knew her. She was a mum. She was also a financial director. And she came on board as my partner. Well, 3 years later, 2008,
Yeah.
we had turned over £1 million. We were in profit. We
Oh,
had
wow.
432 consultants across the country. We had inquiries from America, Australia, and Europe. So it was a really successful business. However, we hadn't done any of the foundations we should have done to set that business up. So we
Okay.
were a victim of our own success, in so many ways. And then she said, well, I'll put in extra money because we needed that next level of investment, but I want 75% of your business.
Oh, geez.
So ultimately I said, no,
Yeah.
no, you're not going to have that. And within a couple of weeks afterwards, she closed my business down, put it
Oh,
into
man.
administration, and then she bought it back. So I actually lost everything.
Wow. Yeah. I've heard the exact same thing on this is a podcast. It Might Win It. And the lady who was Kettlebell Kitchen had something very similar, where they will just like literally, like you said, put it in administration, buy it back cheaper, and then carry on trading. So wow, how
Yeah.
was that for you then? You must have been absolutely devastated at the time
It was
because it's
awful.
just
I mean, it was like I did a TEDx talk, and
yeah,
in that I actually said it was like a grief for me
yeah,
because it was my son that was the reason I started that
yeah.
business.
So
So
it's
it's
like your
so
baby.
personal. And it was like everything had been taken away. And it kind of started a knock-on effect of loss.
Yeah,
I had a miscarriage. My mum had a cancer diagnosis. My marriage failed. My mum passed away. And it was like one thing after
yeah.
another. And
Jeez.
eventually I was 40 years old, single mum and bankrupt, which is not how I wrote it.
Yeah.
And I had to go and get a job.
Wow. Well, where did you go work then? Because that's quite a traumatic period of time you just described there. So, in that time
Yeah.
period, you must have thought, what went wrong? How did it end up here, essentially, when you started working for someone else? Because you've got your own business, you've had success, it's all been taken away, and it's almost like,
Yeah.
right, slap in the face, and here you
Oh, it's
are.
terrible.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think one of the things is it was like my pride and my ego that
yeah,
was incredibly damaged,
I can
which in
imagine. Yeah,
hindsight, who
yeah,
cares?
yeah, yeah,
But that was the problem. And it was like, oh my goodness, this just feels so awful. I've gone back 10 years. I've got to get a job again.
yeah.
But I did. I got a job. I was a national sales manager. I went out on the road again.
Ah, okay.
I was working for a venue selling space. I loved it. I smashed my targets
Ah,
and
okay.
eventually became head of sales at that job. So I got promotion. And I think the thing is, then you learn even more about sales because now
Yeah,
you're looking at it in a different way and
yeah,
that bird's eye view and strategy and stuff. So, again, in hindsight, wasn't that great because I
yeah,
wouldn't have had that experience, to add to my list really. So,
yeah.
yeah.
So how do you think you've been able to? Because I think in another show, I listened to talk about resilience quite a lot, and you must
Yeah.
have been resilient to keep going. So how do you build resilience, and how have you got through this process? Because it's very traumatic what you're talking about, and most people don't make a comeback from that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's about your situation. I
Yeah,
was a single mum.
yeah,
I had Sam. He was my world, and I had to show him that you can
yeah,
get on and be okay. And so a lot of it was him inspiring me to keep on, to
yeah,
be a great mum. But apart from that, I was always just very driven because my dad always said there's no such word as can't. That was
yeah,
something he brought me up on.
yeah,
So I was sitting thinking, well, I can't not do stuff now
yeah,
just because that's happened. And so it was a real attitude and mindset. And some days I have to tell you, I could hardly get out of bed
yeah,
because I was so, so sad. But I did. and I carried on because I think it was so important for me, not just for me, but for Sam and for anyone around me, mum and dad even, because they were still around at the time when I got the job. I wanted them to see that I could recover, you know.
So you mentioned some great things there about look, can't. So your dad then, as you're growing up, did he keep saying that to you and instill that message? Because you normally have the, not normally, sometimes you have parents on the other side where they're like, don't do that. But your dad sounds like he says, go for it. And that.
Yeah, he was. I mean, I think they took, as a couple, my mum and dad were both wonderful. My dad was the vocal one, so I talk about him more. She was quieter and stronger.
Yeah.
I think they both had this attitude in some respects of, we'll take a few risks, let's go for it. They kind of ran away together before I was born, you know, and it was very romantic, but they left everything to start a new life together. You know, so there's lots in their stories that was that kind of, let's just see, you know. And Dad was definitely then, as we were children, if we go, oh, but Dad, I can't. You know, like you do when you're a kid. My dad would go, no such word as can't, no such word as can't. And of course, that was the thing I was brought up on, my mantra. And it's now the legacy that he's left me, which is so lovely. Because I put that through my business. I talk about it. I talk about him. And he's inspired so much of what I've done. So much.
It sounds like it. Like it sounds like he's been your guiding North Star, if you like, on this journey. Especially after obviously passed away, didn't he? Okay. So in terms of like, so you've gone from having a business, getting a job essentially, and then you becoming a director. Where did you go from there? Because obviously you've got this book, Live It, Love It, Sell It, great name, and that's kind of like splattered everywhere when you look at you. So you've got some really good brand identity with that, and also the message of Dragon Slayer, and so you've got all these cool attributes that really help with your brand. So how did you go from sales director to then starting a business again?
Well, I actually got made redundant from a position I had. I was moving around, actually, sort of interim type of positions. People would say, will you come and be our sales director and just sort out our sales strategy and our team? And I got headhunted by this guy, and he's a lovely guy, and I worked for him for about 10 months. And then I kept hearing him say, but we always do it like that. And I kept thinking, I'm not going to make a difference here, you know. And eventually he said, look, you know, here you go. We need to make you redundant because really we can't afford you anymore. And also, you know, things are changing, blah, blah, blah. But he gave me 3 months money. And do you know what? I sat and I looked at this and I thought, now's the time. This is it. Because I knew one day I'd want to start my own business again. So I started a business as a coach, literally just as a coach. And then my old boss from Yellow Pages, he says to me on this call we had like this, so what are you going to coach then, Jules? So I said, anything, everything.
The classic mistake. I'll do everything, do it all, help everybody.
And then he just looked at me and he went, okay. He said, you haven't mentioned sales, have you? He said, and you were really, really great at sales. And this is my old Yellow Pages boss. So I just came off the call and I had this little light bulb moment. And I thought, right, well, if I'm going to do sales, I have to do it different. Because I can't stand that kind of traditional transactional sales process stuff. I just can't. I was brought up on it and I never did it. I used to do something different. So I thought, what was it I did? And I knew it was relationships. I knew it was about conversation. It was about curiosity and all these lovely things that I knew was what sales meant to me. So I created a road trip, you know, so a journey, I guess you could call it. I call it the sales road trip. The live it, the love it, the sell it. And it was all about, it's got to start with you. We've got to find out who you are and how you feel. Then we connect you with the client and then you show up, you know, and it was that. And that was live it, love it, sell it. And it was born. And the book then was the next thing that I did. I wrote it into a book.
So when you came up with that, how did you come up with that? Because obviously you said it, and then did you sit there for like days on end thinking of what I want to call this, how I want to create this framework or road? Would you call it a roadmap? Sorry, or road journey?
Yeah, I called it a sales road trip.
So road trip. So how did? Because I find it fascinating people come up with names and structures. Because I listened to Shoe Dog. I don't know if you've read that book. And he's like Dimension 52, whatever it was going to call it, instead of Nike. And he pondered for
Yeah.
must have been weeks on end by the sound of the book. So how did you come to that conclusion of that name? Because it's such a great name and it works really well.
Well, I can't claim that it's all me, if
All
I'm
right.
honest, because I had a book coach. And so this lady came and we sat for a day together, and I said, I want to write a book. And she said, great. So I thought it was actually going to be about Dragon's Den and my story.
Yeah.
That's honestly what I thought it would be. And then she got to know how passionate I was about sales, but changing it and making it feel different. And we sat on the floor of my front room with loads of bits of paper, and we made all these things, all that I could bring about sales. And we put them into these 3 little kind of places. And she just sat there and she went, well, that's live it.
Yeah.
Because that's all stuff about people and you. That's love it.
Yeah.
That's where you connect. And that's sell it, like this. And I went, oh, I love it, like this. And so live it, love it, sell it was exactly what we said. She said she birthed my book, if you ask her. So she's very true.
Forward. So so now you've got that brand, and then did you then leverage some of the Dragon's Den stuff to promote, like rebirth this whole process again? Because you mentioned before you didn't want to mention it, you did mention it. Because I think it's great leverage, so you might as well use it. Is that what you kept concluding in the end?
Well, I think originally I just thought no one's going to want to know about it. It was so long ago, and it's boring, and it was a failure, you know, and that was kind of my attitude. But actually people around me were saying, but people really love Dragon's Den, and it's still on. And like I said earlier, you know, Peter Jones is even still the original dragon. So people wanted to know about it. They were curious and they were asking me. So I thought, well, if people really want to know about this, I may as well speak about it. But what I didn't want to do was talk about all of the ins and outs and bad things around losing the business, because I did lose the business and I lost it badly. But I then want to talk about what that meant to me today, because it's amazing what happened really after that, even though it was painful. So so I do still talk about the den. It comes in waves, if I'm honest. Sometimes people don't talk about it and some people do, you know, and I'm always happy to share my little stories.
I think it, especially for a British crowd, if you like, I think hearing the truth and the realism of it all really helps to build that character profile as well. Like, okay, Jules had, you know, lost it and brought it all back, and that journey, people like that journey anyway. People don't want to always hear about all the wins. So I think that
that's true, because it's the reality, isn't it? Exactly. You know, it's great. It's great to share the journey if it inspires others, definitely.
100%. So talk to me about this UHP then. So is this the new branch of this, or is this?
So what happened was, obviously I created Live It, Love It, Sell It, and then it was a nice brand and it was really getting some traction. And then I thought, well, this is very much a brand for the solopreneur, entrepreneur type market. That was where I was doing a lot of work. They loved it. They had big fear around sales. And then I thought, I've got so much to give the corporate market, because I've worked in corporate. That's where I cut my teeth, really. So I thought, I need something for them. If I go in and tell them live it, love it, sell it, they'll just laugh me back out the door.
Makes sense.
And then I started to think about USP. You know, we were always taught, what's your USP, your unique selling proposition? And it was so old school. Do you know, it was 1940s that they created USP. Can you believe that? It's really old, and it's just not relevant now like it used to be, because there's so much noise out there. If you sell a widget, I do too, and mine's better than yours, but mine's better, but mine's going to improve. And it's messy. So I thought, well, what is it now? And we talk about UVP, unique value proposition. And I'm like, I like this. This is better. We like value. And then I still thought, there's something more to this. And then I realized that it is absolutely about people. That's all it's about. And it's about the individual, unique person. There's no other you on the planet. And there's no other me on the planet. And it's like, are we maximizing our unique human proposition, which is us? So I thought, I love this. This works. And I think it works in corporate teams, because I think we've got a team of individuals, and that's what we don't make the most of. So so I created UHP, I've trademarked it, and now it's a program, and I've got it as an online program because of obviously what happened to us all, or what's happening to us all.
Crazy times.
So I'm super excited about UHP. It's really good stuff.
So how did you, obviously you mentioned that now and that makes you stand out. So if you're new to sales or actually we'll go back a bit. So you mentioned about the corporate training piece. So how do you take
Yeah.
something that is unique and individual and then train 10, 20 people to kind of have a framework but be unique in that framework? Because obviously I've been to events and trainings where they say follow a script. And I listened to your book a little bit and it says you don't want to follow a script. So how do you coach someone how to follow something but that keep it unique? Because that's hard. It's like a science and an art. And I think you have to there's a fine line. I think.
Yeah, it is hard. And you have to incorporate the fact that some people are not seasoned salespeople.
Yeah.
So scripts actually are a crutch sometimes for, to support them and help them. But I'd rather they create questions or bullet points than a verbatim script, because that's the bit that stops them sounding like them. So it's all for me about coaxing back all of those lovely subconscious skills we already have, because since we were literally born, we have developed the ability to communicate and connect and be curious and get what we want. Those skills, the life skills, are sales skills. And what's happened with the structured training is it's beaten that stuff out of us and told us we have to do it like this. So what I do is, whilst yes, there's a framework of the sales road trip, it's about connection. It's about understanding who you are and your values and actually your isms, I call them. So how you show up. You've got isms. You're cool. And I always think you're memorable. And so I want to just let everybody in that team discover that they're all actually uniquely memorable. And they have their own language and isms. And so that's how I want them to show up when they sell the product.
Yeah, makes sense. It makes total sense. Do you think there's a pressure in the corporate world to have that kind of like, here's a script, stick to the script? Because it's almost like it's easier just to give someone a script than train them up. Because I've been a sales manager in Debenhams and you had to train the team and how to sell accounts and all that. And it was almost like follow the script. And if you follow the script, you're going to be successful. But it's not that easy. It's not that straightforward. So do you think some people are born to sell or have more of ability to sell, or can anyone sell anything?
Well, I think anyone can sell anything because, as I said, life skills are sales skills, but it's whether you want to be in sales is kind of the key thing, because it's not for everybody. Some people want to be in a more analytical type of role or a more creative role, or, although I think sales is very creative personally, but it's different people will enjoy sales for different reasons. But I guess it comes back to that piece that we talked about earlier, where people are now starting their own businesses. So every single one of those people are unique. Well, they don't all want to be in sales. Because they don't think they can sell. So a lot of it is about positioning what sales really means, I think, because actually sales is about two humans making a connection and that win-win conversation. That means that I now trust you. You've got something I want, so we're going to create a relationship together, And it's the old school selling process type training. Is safe. It's safe. And that's all I can say to you. It's been done for years. It works to a level, but it's safe. But actually, how much better could we sell if we let ourselves go and became a unique experience for our customers,
Step into your power, isn't it, I guess?
That's what's exciting about it. I just quickly, when I was at my job that I mentioned earlier, we had a target which we were missing by £2 million. It was a 6 million target and we were missing it by 2 million.
No pressure.
And we had been taught script, number of calls, hit the numbers, hit the phones. We were missing target. So they put me in the middle. Go on then, Jules, take over. No training. And I stripped back all of the targets. I started to talk about humans, relationships, why our customers buy, etc. What are you all good at as individuals? And within 18 months, we smashed the target by 180,000.
Awesome. So what made you initially step into anything to do with sales then? Because a lot of people are just fearful of it, like you mentioned before. So what made you think, right, I'm going to take a stance, I'm going to do this? Where did that all come from?
I think Dad.
Okay.
You probably guessed I might say that.
Yeah.
But when I was growing up, he ran the local newsagents on the shopping
Okay. Yeah.
precinct. You know, I am very old. And people went shopping to the local shops. You know, that's what we did. So there was a community, the butchers, bakers,
Yeah.
greengrocers,
Remember
and
that.
Dad ran the newsagents. And so everyone knew Dad. He knew everyone. I watched him in the shop.
Yeah.
And I used to think, I love this. This is lovely.
Yeah.
All these people love my dad.
Yeah.
My dad loves all these
Yeah.
people. And so my
Makes
first
sense. Yeah.
experience of sales was this really lovely sort of, I talk about start loving your customers, not selling to them,
Yeah.
you know, because that was the feel I got from Dad. So I think he probably inspired me wanting to just do something with people where I just met people all day long. And naturally that was sales. I started work at 16
Oh wow.
in NatWest Bank.
Oh, NatWest.
Because we
You've spoken at NatWest a few times. That must be like full circle then for you, isn't it? Must be so weird. Yeah.
It all comes around.
Yeah.
But I worked there for 5 years, and then as soon as I got on the counter and I was serving people, I'm like, I was in my element then. Yeah. That was it. So I knew that was what I wanted to do, really. So
that makes sense. That makes total sense. Okay. And so what would be your like top 3 tips then, if you were to say, if you had, let's go for 3 types of people. So first of all, the entrepreneur. So someone who's just starting out, what would be your 3 kind of tips for them in terms of how to sell anything? Because there's a lot of, because it's almost like a free market now. You can have a social media platform, you can sell anything to anyone. It's like the gates have been opened, but not everyone has the skill set to deal with that. So how, as an entrepreneur, how would you coach an entrepreneur to be able to sell something?
Well, you start with live it, which is the getting to know you, and you've got to have that part nailed. That's usually the bit that gives you the fear. You usually say, nobody's going to buy what I've got. Nobody's going to pay my prices. Everybody does the same as me.
Yeah.
So I do work on that with an entrepreneur a lot. That's a big piece.
Yeah.
So that they're now believing in what they sell, seeing that they're unique and understanding the value in what they have. The next step is connecting them to the ideal customer.
Yeah.
And so that they can then see that they've got the same values, what they want, stepping into their world, so that there's that connection. And all of that builds confidence.
Yeah.
That's a really, really big piece. And the last bit, sell it, is about being visible and actually out there with your message, so that it's a consistent and regular message, and then people know what you do. And also using your stories, because stories are the best thing when you're selling.
Definitely. Cool. That makes sense. So that's the entrepreneur, if you like. So what about somebody who has a few team members? Say I've got 5 team members. How would you help me then coach them?
So I'd want to look at actually then where you are now. Okay. I'd want to look at your strategy. So who's your customers? What is it you're selling? Who are your competitors potentially? Because although I don't focus heavily on that, it's good to know what world you're in.
Can I ask,
and then I start looking.
Yeah.
Sorry,
why don't you focus on that? Because I believe you shouldn't, because you get distracted. But it's interesting you said that. So why don't you focus on that?
Same, because they're not you.
Yeah.
They're not you. They're different to you. So, there's 100 million probably sales coaches in the world. You know that. Yeah. You know a lot yourself. Yeah.
Business coaches, sales coaches, coaches everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But they're all different. Every single one of them is different. And so if I suddenly went out and was watching what all of they were doing, and I was getting fearful because they're getting lots of likes and lots of people are following them, but they don't follow me, then I've actually got my eye completely off the ball and I'm not being me. Yeah. So no, I don't do a really big piece on competitors. On corporate teams, they need to know what's going on in the market. Yeah. But I never make it a focus, like we've got to beat the comp. Yeah. No, I don't do that.
I wanted to just really emphasize that. No, makes total sense. Yeah. Okay. So carry on. I'll kind of jump in.
But then I start to look at them as individuals in that team. So actually, who's good at what? What are their little isms? What markets are they being successful in? Because actually, often we put the wrong salespeople in the wrong places to sell. And that's really interesting, because that happened for me when I took my team over. Yeah. I'd suddenly got people trying to sell in markets that they were just never going to break, because they just weren't right for that market. So that's UHP territory. That's really fun.
So that's when it kind of converts on. Okay, gotcha. And then say if you're, so is that the same principles then if you're a massive corporate team with hundreds and hundreds of staff? Would that be the same principles you use for that?
Yeah, because I would probably approach it where I work with small teams, because
Yeah.
within a big corporate, you'll still have your small pocket teams.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would work with them in a similar way. Yeah, most definitely. And some of them now I'm working on a retainer where I'm then doing one-to-one coaching with individuals. So it's really mixed the way I work with corporate teams, but I like a mix of group and individual if I can get that. That's amazing.
Yeah, because I find individual coaching or mentoring is quite hard if you do it for a period of time, because it's quite draining. Just like if you do one after the other, it's like, oh my God. Yeah, because you have to give so much in that time period. Okay.
I always make sure I don't do longer than 90 minutes when I'm coaching on an individual basis, especially with Zoom, because it's a real thing. Zoom fatigue is a real thing.
It's legit. It's in the dictionary yet. Should be. Okay, then, so moving on, actually, we'll talk about Zoom, so this is quite a nice pivot. So COVID then, how was that journey for you? Because I'm asking a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners that question, because everyone's had a different journey with it. So just if you could talk to me about the beginning of it and the middle and kind of now. Just to get an idea.
Definitely. I think the best thing I heard someone say, which I used in a webinar, was that we were all in different ships in the same storm. And I thought that was so wonderful, because that just summed it up, didn't it?
Yeah.
I started COVID, sat on my kitchen floor, because I'm at my breakfast bar at the moment, sat on my kitchen floor crying because I just lost £25,000 out of my business. Literally overnight, because of speaking gigs and workshops, that those got cancelled. They were gone
instantaneously, isn't it?
And there was nothing I could do about that. But it was £25,000, which was a big hit for a small solopreneur business, And my son said to me, come on, Mum, don't cry like this. And I was like, yeah, but it's 3 years. Again, it was 3 years with Truly Madly Baby. It's 3 years. And I'm like, doom and gloom. And he said to me, yeah, but you're made of different stuff, Mum.
Awesome.
And it was the way he said it, you know. And I thought, oh my God, I can't let this boy down. I didn't when he was little, and I can't let him down now. So I just got back up.
He's
15.
15, yeah, cool. All right.
Yeah. So I got back up, and I kind of just looked at what my business was. What have I got? I was already coaching online. That wasn't going to be major, but I shifted everything in UHP online, because that's normally a delivered face-to-face program. And I made it into like a mini series of Zoom sessions.
Yeah, makes sense.
But still in the same format. And then I just set about promoting my one-to-one coaching, obviously a Zoom coaching.
Yeah.
I did webinars, which I've never done before.
Yeah. How did you find that entering the webinar world?
I loved it because I never sold on them. I was determined that I would not do that whole half an hour of sales stuff that people do on webinars.
Yeah.
I was just going to give.
Yeah.
And I did a series of 4, and every one of them I just gave.
Yeah.
I said a little bit at the end, how you work with me if you want to come and connect with me. Yeah. I got 2 brand new clients, good value, brand new clients from doing 4 free webinars.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was going to happen. Yeah. I just put myself out there. The big thing I think was about being visible.
Okay.
Yeah. Not going into the corner, just staying visible. And giving value, and didn't mean you had to give everything for free. I know lots of people did, but you didn't have to do that. But what you had to do is showing up, showing your value. And actually, for me, I got more clients in COVID than I'd had in a long time.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like that.
So I was really lucky. I was really lucky.
So why did you decide not to do the whole half an hour pitching? That's not your style, is it, at all? Is that what you thought so?
Not my style. No. And the thing is, I suppose that I have this complete belief that you don't need to do that to attract the right people. And the other thing I noticed was that the people who came during COVID had actually been following me. And I didn't even necessarily know some of them were following me. One lady said, I followed you for 2 years. And I was a bit like, wow.
It's weird, that, isn't it? Like, Farah's had people follow for 3 years and then bought something, but like, where have you been for 3 years?
Well,
hiding.
Exactly. But I think it's a big lesson for us as salespeople that actually it's the buyer's journey, and they buy when they're ready. So our job's actually to keep showing up and showing who we are. So we're on the short list when they're ready to buy. That's my whole philosophy, really. We're kind of in marketing as much as we're in sales now, to be honest.
Definitely, 100%. So actually, it's a good point moving on actually to that point. So actually, so you've had 25 grand loss. You collected a lot of clients, and now today is that now you've got the UHP, and then that's now the new business. And would you go back to some of the old stuff now you've had the opportunity to do online? Because I know people are positioned in a place where actually I like online more than physical. And so where would you go if you had a choice now, going back or coming out of this?
I think I'd like a balance, if I'm honest,
Yeah.
because what I really miss is speaking.
Yeah.
Because speaking in a live place there's like nothing else. I did some virtual speaking across COVID. Again, amazing how lovely that I got that chance, and that was really fun. Yeah. But I'm still sat in my kitchen and I can't touch feel or see any whites of the eyes kind of thing, you know. And I was just like, I've missed that. So I think I would love it if we could get speaking going again. That would be amazing. And I would like to do an odd workshop, but I am also really happy with my online world because it's fruitful and it's really effective. It doesn't really take that much away from the work I do. So
it's so scalable, isn't it?
I'm really lucky. I'm really lucky.
Yeah. So how did you then? Because a lot of people struggle with the technology part. Because I know your son created a little studio for you, hasn't he? I saw an amazing picture. It's brilliant. So did he help with the webinar setup and all that, or did you get someone external to do that out of interest?
No. So I'm self-taught. I would say 95% of the stuff I do is self-taught, which is really long and painful. Yeah. Then I have a couple of people who I call on when I'm really stuck, and they help me with sort of coding bits if I need stuff like that. But the webinar was great because I had a couple of people who helped with things like letting people in and managing the chat and things, and they just did that for free for me as friends, which was super. Yes. And obviously they enjoyed the webinar as well, hopefully. But apart from that, I am a little bit freaked out by tech. I won't lie, but I like to. It's a bit dad, isn't it, in my ear going, no such word as can't. And so I think I just get on with it, you know. And I've learned a lot. I've learned a huge amount.
Yeah, I think if you can embrace it, like most things, you're going to benefit massively. And I think some entrepreneurs just stay stuck. And I think moving from the start of COVID to now, people have still not been able to navigate through it all because they just haven't embraced it and gone, right, I want to learn this thing or skill. I think it's such an important thing to learn because it's not going anywhere. It's going to be here forever.
No, it's not. And I think the other thing about me is I'm a bit of a doer. Yeah. So actually, when I decide I'm going to do something, I actually do it. And like I've just launched a membership, which I talked about doing for a long time. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I said, right, I'm doing it now. I'm doing it now. And literally within about 4 weeks, I'd launched it because I said, this is the launch date. And then I worried about getting it all ready.
That's the best way to do it. I think it's the best way to create a program or course going. I'm launching it the 1st of November. Then you go, oh, crap. Then you get a whiteboard and start planning it all out. But I would recommend everyone does it that way because it gives you that injection of, I have to now do this.
Well, I think also it brings out your creativity. You don't realize it, but you know this stuff. If it's a subject matter that you love and you know it. And I think sometimes we hide behind that. We think, well, we don't know everything, do we? But a lot of us over the years have learned enough to be able to just do this stuff. So
yeah, definitely. It's just how you package it, isn't it, and put it together like you've done. Like you've now put it into an actual program and structure. Then it makes sense. Then people are used to that way of learning. It makes total sense to
definitely.
Me. Cool. So then, moving on to something else. So if you so pricing then, because this is a big issue. So where would you start? It's massive. Like, because the biggest question I get asked are, how much do I charge? And it's like picking something out of the sky. So how do you start with somebody who's struggling with pricing? Because it's a huge topic.
I rarely talk about pricing, and I know you're not going to believe me.
Okay. No. What's your strategy then? Give us the secrets. There is no price.
Weird, this woman. When I'm working with clients, I'm all about looking at the value. I'm all about looking at actually what is it that I get as a lifetime value from what you do. So not just that price ticket. Yeah. I also talk about what the client thinks value looks like.
Yeah,
Because
very
often what
important.
we say is we do all the work on value. Well, I know what my value is, which
Yeah.
is great. But did you ask the client what
Yeah.
they think? Because they might not think the same as you. And so a lot of it's aligning with what the client believes value looks like. And that's through questioning, that's through conversation. You know, it's kind of, again, those standard skills we already have that create a conversation that is all about value and not about price.
Yeah.
And so when somebody's really, really pushing and adamant on price, you've got to be careful that you've missed building the value of something beforehand.
Yeah,
So price always has to come at the end of it for me, you know, ideally.
Do you think we would make the mistake of putting it first, like how much you charge, and we'll just tell someone, and that's the conversation's over essentially, then, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you're on the back foot then, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're coming back from something because you can tell somebody something costs this much before you've then told them actually what it's worth to them, or they understand what it's worth to them. And that's such a different way round, story-wise. I think the other thing about price is there's a lot of coaches who are very heavy on put your price up, high ticket, you know, you hear it all the time.
Yeah.
I think there's got to be some integrity around pricing personally, but that's probably because I love what I do as opposed to I'm trying to get rich and buy a yacht, you know, kind of thing.
No yachts then.
And there's a difference here. And I think I have to be comfortable in my soul and my gut that my price is of that value to someone. And so actually, on a personal level, my price has increased as I've gone on because I've built confidence in my results and I've seen my value.
Sense. Yeah, it makes logical sense.
Yeah. So it's a lot of that is the work I'll do with an entrepreneur. So I don't ever put my clients under pressure on price. Okay. I help them to see where price needs to sit in it all, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I always of the point that people tend to lower their price versus add more value. And I learned that in the last year, probably the last 18 months more than ever. Like, don't ever lower the price. Just how can I add more value? Because when you lower the price, it's only ways down to the bottom. That's not good for anybody. So
there's I love that you've mentioned this because this is a great part of the price conversation. So discount, okay? The word discount. It's one of my real pet hates, and I'm quite vocal about it, but it's because it's for the right reasons. So if you say to me, I'm going to give you a discount, then the next time I come back to you, I am expecting to get exactly the same discount and price. Now, if you say this is an introductory price, if you even say this is a beta price, or maybe a case study price. I'm not joking. You've positioned that price psychologically in a one-off position. I will not expect it again. So actually, if you do feel like you really want to offer something at a lower price, you've got to think about how you position that in a language capacity. It's a great tip, I think, for anyone listening.
Oh, yeah.
Do not talk about discount. Please don't talk about discount because it's really hard to come back from, you know?
Yeah. It reminds me of, like, I used to work in Debenhams, as I mentioned before, and the previous CEO, has been about 10 since then, said that he wanted to get this thing called Mega Day where you go and everything's green ticketed, like 20% off, 20% off. And initially when they first launched, it was literally like one day of like the whole year, and it was crazy, and that was it. Now they brought it every 2 months it came back, and it got longer and longer, and the time and the novelty wore off, and people just weren't buying things. And I think that's one of the reasons they're struggling now. Because like you said, it's that discount. People go in and it's 50 quid. I'll wait till next week because it'll be discounted. And it's the wrong way to go.
And it devalues what you do. And I think particularly if you're offering a service type business, you know, even more so, don't devalue what you're doing, because what you provide is probably that lifetime value. Once I've shown you something or coached you a certain way, you'll probably use that forever. You know, I've used stuff forever that my coaches have given me, which has been super value. That's lifetime value. How do you put a price on that?
I agree with you, because obviously being in the fitness space previous to this, it was the same thing. If I can change someone's life and make them feel better about themselves, that is surely is worth, you know, that's great value. Because if you lose 20 pounds and you don't have type 2 diabetes, That's not bad, is it?
No,
Yeah,
exactly. And like you say, add value,
yeah,
So there's another thing that used to happen to me sometimes if certain products that I was selling
yeah.
once in one of my previous jobs, we almost had like a menu, a menu of things you can have. Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Which is always hard, but it also can work to advantage. So then I'd quote a price and I'd list all the things that was in that price, and
yeah,
then they'd say, "Oh, can you do it for less?" So
yeah,
I'd say, "Well, what would you like to take off the
yeah.
menu?"
I've heard that. Yeah, strategy before. Yeah,
Because the fact is, much as it's a little bit old school, if you like that, is in terms of like sales
yeah,
training, but it's true. They choose then what they're not going to buy.
yeah,
Because if you start taking things off for them, it means you're recommending a different thing to what you recommended in the first place.
yeah.
So again, this is all about holding your place on value and what you think is the right solution
Yeah.
for a customer.
Yeah, because not every customer is going to be right for you, and you've got to make that decision. Like, right, this might not work, because I've done it
Yeah.
before when I've got a client and I'm like, right, they've paid me X amount. I'm like, giving them value. I'm like, this is not worth my time, or they're not moving on forward, and I'm a bit disgruntled because I should charge more, and they're not really getting a result. So we end up in this weird situation. They're not getting a result, and I'm not getting what I believe I should be paid, and it just ends up being like at this weird position. And you're like, what do I do now? And nobody benefits.
Yeah.
So yeah,
No.
I agree. Yeah, don't.
It's horrible, isn't it?
Yeah,
You're never going to sell to everyone. That's a great message,
yeah,
isn't it, to
yeah,
put out to everybody? Don't try
yeah.
because you don't want to
And I
actually. You
don't
don't
want
want
some
to.
people. And we've all had those clients. We're like, oh God, why am I working with this person? In the beginning, especially
Yeah.
because you're trying to start, aren't you? Essentially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So, moving on to something else. So, in terms of if you were a business owner, what 3 tips would you give with someone who's struggling in their business? Just like struggling in general.
And are they kind of like us entrepreneur, solopreneur type
Yeah,
of
yeah. Let's go with
space? Yeah.
entrepreneur. Yeah, let's go entrepreneur, because I know you serve them quite well with you live it, love it, sell it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, it's a really tough time.
yeah,
Let's give ourselves a bit of slack here because it's a very,
mm,
very tough time. But I think if it's really hard and you're struggling, there's lots of things to think about. Do you need to, the word has been used, pivot, because
yeah,
that's been the popular word. But are there things you could do slightly differently? And the way to start is to think about who is your audience
yeah,
and how are they feeling now.
yeah,
We have to meet our audience where they are now. That's massive. And everybody's talking about it, thank goodness. But
yeah,
it's a really, really good point. So if you're struggling, what's happening to your customers? And are you struggling because they're struggling?
yeah,
And so what do they need? Can
yeah.
you actually still work together but in a different way? And one of the other things I talked about in one of my webinars was, what's your customer's customer doing? So even
Okay, yeah,
taking it out further,
yeah,
because your customer's probably got a customer, I
yeah,
should think they have,
yeah,
but do we ever go into that much depth to say, well, actually, he's struggling because his customer's struggling?
yeah.
And not every industry is struggling right now.
No, no,
Some
no, no.
industries are still doing okay.
Yeah,
So again, have you got a product that could serve a different market that you've not yet been in, that you might be able to investigate? So there's lots to talk
yeah,
about in advice,
yeah,
but it is all about reevaluating your business. What is it that is the solution you provide, and how can you do it either in a different way or maybe to a different market, or even totally different. Look at these
yeah.
guys who made hand sanitizers
Oh
and
God, yeah.
face guards and everything.
They're
I mean,
doing
you
all right.
saw it, didn't
Yeah,
you? Yeah,
yeah. I've got a
yeah. So,
friend, yeah, who did that. Who
sorry.
was doing e-cigarettes, and he pivoted to doing then hand sanitizers, and he making an absolute fortune because of it. He just
Yeah,
pivot his business.
yeah.
So yeah, some people are really benefiting.
And there was a guy who I saw on the news who opened up a business that had masks in vending machines.
Oh, genius! See, just
And
swap the product over.
he
Yeah,
just went, like, his business went through the roof. Now, you might say, but maybe that business will only have a 2 year sort of
yeah,
life cycle. You don't know, but it'll probably serve him enough to do
yeah,
whatever he wants to do then.
yeah,
So it's
definitely.
always the simple things actually that help us to move in a different direction. So
Yeah, 100%.
don't lose hope. Don't lose hope.
Yeah,
And surround yourself with other people, other entrepreneurs. They're so
yeah,
supportive. get into these communities because they'll really help to support you if you're feeling like you're a bit lost.
Yeah, I found that because when it all first kicked off, I'm part of that West Business Accelerator program. So every week, I think every morning it was weekday, they had a 9:00 Zoom call, and people were airing their views and opinions and whatnot. And that really helps some of the guys to just to give perspective more than anything else, just to see other people's. And that's why I read a lot of books, because reading someone else's journey makes me think, oh, mine's not so bad. And I think that really helps.
Yeah, I think it does. And I think, just knowing you're not alone is another big thing, isn't it? Because often we can sit and think it's only me.
Yeah.
It's only me that's gone quiet. It's only me that's lost money.
Especially as an
and of course
entrepreneur.
it isn't.
Yeah, because it can be lonely.
Very, very lonely. Yeah.
Cool. And then, okay, so the last few questions then to kind of wrap it all up. So if you were to start all over again then, how would you start? So if you started all over again, what would you change?
About my business now?
Yeah, everything. So let's go from Dragon's Den. Would you have gone on the show? What would you have changed?
I wouldn't change anything. Do you know why? Because I think it's what makes me who I am today. And I know that's a bit corny.
That's right.
But honestly,
we're like a bit of cheese on this show.
It's true because, yes, it was amazingly painful at times, but that's why I'm who I am today. I always say we're built from the mistakes that we've ever made, so definitely. No, I don't think I would change anything. I think for this business, I probably would have done stuff a bit quicker. So I wouldn't have fannied about with the I'm a coach stuff for a few months. I would have got straight into the sales stuff. So.
Yeah, I guess you've got to go through that though, don't you? You have to then work it. Because I bet, well, I say I bet. I'm just assuming at that time you probably went coach because it means that you're not quite dipping into sales. You're kind of like keeping it safe. But when you dive into something, it's like, oh no, I have to be sales. I have to like represent that. Is that what you felt at the time? Or am I just guessing this?
I think after 30 odd years selling, I just desperately wanted to do something different.
Okay.
That's what I thought, but actually the reason why sales had got me down was because of the way it was being done and perceived. And so actually to come out of it with a new way of doing sales was what was really exhilarating, I think. So.
That's awesome. I love that. Cool. And then just to end on the last question, what advice would you give to an entrepreneur if you had like a big megaphone, you had to give one message to all the entrepreneurs out there, what would it be?
Well, apart from there's no such word as can't, I can't really use that one again, but that would definitely be
you should train like that.
I think it's about, well, there's lots of things to say, isn't there? But if it was one thing, I would just say be visible.
Okay, cool.
Is what I would say. And I'd want to add be unique with it. So maybe those two things together. But be visible. It's so important. No one's going to know anything about you if you're not there regularly, consistently, and relevantly.
Do you think is it just down to fear that people are worried to be visible because it's easy to blend in and stand out? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think so. And there's a whole piece of work I do with fear on with my clients because it's internal. It's so internal, and we can actually position it and work with it. So
okay, cool. Where can people find you then if you want to know more about you?
Obviously, if you put Live It, Love It, Sell It into Google, you'll probably find something about me. But I have a Linktree link, which you might have heard of. So that's just a one-off link, which has got all of my links on it. So because I'm on LinkedIn, I've got a website, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, etc. I've got my own podcast. So the Linktree link is probably the best one. Will you put that in the show notes?
Yeah, put it in the show notes. Yeah, if you send it to me. Yeah, put it in there, no worries.
Yeah, but if you Google Live It, Love It, Sell It, you'll find somewhere to connect with me. But please do connect because I love that if you do. That's awesome.
Oh, awesome. Good stuff. Is there anything you think that people don't know about you that they should know? Because I know you've done a lot of like podcasting and a lot of like, obviously you've been on Dragon's Den. You've been exposed quite a lot in different areas. Is there anything that people just don't know about you that you want them to know?
Oh my goodness. I don't know what sort of things your guests might answer with that one.
I just thought of it. I thought, let me ask the question.
Well, I think, I suppose Maybe that I'm really musical.
Okay.
My
Wow.
my son is actually now producing his own music. He plays the piano and he's
Yeah.
never been taught. He just
Oh,
plays. He's
wow.
amazing.
Yeah.
But I play clarinet and
Oh,
saxophone. So
I didn't know
I'm
that.
very, very
Oh, wow.
musical. So maybe that's a nice thing to just
I
leave
love that.
people with.
Saxophone. Are you gonna like? You should add that somewhere in there. Can you weave that
I'm not
into?
going to play.
Come on, give us a tune. All right. Cool. Thanks, Jules, for being an amazing guest.
Thank you
I've
so
been a
much.
show.
I've loved our
Yeah, it's been
conversation.
great. Loved it.